Thanks for tuning in to Tapped In. If you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed on the mats, come find your direction in our DFM Coaching BJJ School community. Now, let's get started.
Welcome to Tapped In. My name is David Figueroa Martinez, and today we're going to be discussing maximizing your 2 to 3 training session a week schedule. It is not fun if you could only train twice a week. For the most part of my career, I think I train 3, sometimes 4 times a week. 3, I think, was the magic number. And there were days or weeks where maybe work just lined up perfectly, or I was taking some time off and I can add some stuff to my schedule. But more often than not, my entire time as a student for the 10 years before I became a black belt, it was roughly 3 days a week. Some people will say, 3 days a week isn't enough. And if you are a professional and you're trying to make this a athletic endeavor where you're trying to make a name for yourself, 3 days a week, it really probably is not enough at all. For the rest of us normies who are juggling spouses, children, jobs, some cases multiple jobs, some cases a job and maybe some education that they're trying to pursue, or the job is, it just takes so much time. You're working 50, 60 hours a week. Maybe you got a side hustle. Whatever it might be, the fact that you have only 2 days, maybe 3 to get in there and really train with, I don't think is the worst thing, to be honest with you. 2 is stretching it. I'll give you that. 2 would be really difficult to make advancements. Now, the goal is if you're only training 2 days a week, 3 days a week, you just have to understand that you're going to have to tweak some things. But most importantly, you're going to have to tweak what your goals are. You can't think that you're going to get at a depth of knowledge that a professional has who's training 6, 7 days a week, probably multiple times a week or in a day, and that you think you're going to keep that pace or that you're going to be as skillful as that person. One of the things that happens, we are training and we might have a training partner that we really like, or someone that we have designated as our rival, our gym rival. And at one point, you guys are doing great. You're neck and neck, and that person's a great measuring stick for where you are in jiu-jitsu because you guys are so closely matched. So as they progress, you progress, and then you're always kind of like going back and forth with your technique. It's beautiful rounds. And then one day, one of you makes a decision. In my case, I had a gentleman that I was neck and neck with, and there were times where I was killing this guy, killing him. And then something happened where I don't know if his schedule changed or his priority changed, his work changed. I don't know what it was. He started going training far more often, and I can't touch anything that guy does technique-wise. It's been like that for years. I don't give him much of a threat. He is probably stronger than I am. So there's that on top of, but I'm not saying that that's the reason. His skill level is just, one day it just skyrocketed. And I started paying attention to what was going on. And he's just training more than me. And while he skyrocketed, I had to accept that that gentleman was no longer my gym rival. And that my 3 days a week, roughly, was not enough to keep pace with him. So he outpaced me. He got his black belt before I did. He just killing me every time I rolled. There were days where I didn't want to roll with him because I knew it was going to be a hard round of me being the nail. And there's some days that you just don't want to do that. And I understood what it was. So sometimes we have to understand where we're going to lay in all this, but also understand that 3 day an average a week isn't necessarily a bad thing. And 2 isn't the worst thing. Is it great? No. Does it force you to have to be more consistent with your time? Yes. If you're coming 2 to 3 times a week, but maybe you're taking a week or 2 off every 4, 5, 6 weeks, it's not the same as if you were just, okay, I got these 3 days, every week I'm going to show up. That is consistency. And you can really build on that because I've noticed the people who trained a lot sometimes had these giant gaps because one, they either got injured or they had to like pull back because of a job, or like the schedule that schedule of 5, 6 classes a week isn't always viable long term. But if you can get it into your life schedule that I'm going to do 3 days a week, regardless of what's happening, you're going to be, in essence, the turtle in a lot of these endeavors. Yes, there's going to be some people who are you're never going to catch. Accept it. But for the most part, I trained that 3 days a week religiously. If there was a day that I couldn't come in, I switched it for another day. If I was sick, I marked it as I can't train. I can't do anything about it. Sometimes I watched videos. Sometimes I worked on a blog post, or I worked on an instructional, and I made my way through it. But I was always kind of connected to jiu-jitsu one way or the other. But that consistency is going to beat everything else long term. There's a lot of people who were training a lot harder than I was, more often than I was, who did not make it to black belt at all. There's a lot of people I know people who became world champions at certain belts, never made it to black belt. I know people who were so like, if I had to write it down, they were destined for something bigger. They just had this innate ability of doing things better than I was, on top of being athletically gifted maybe, or having a great schedule. And over time, just they faded. So sometimes I think that 3 days a week is perfect. Now, the things that I want to do is I want to like pick something for a month, 4 to 6 weeks. I want to pick that thing and I want to work it into every training session, or most training sessions that I have. If I'm a white belt, my focus should probably be escapes. I want to be so adept at escaping bad positions that I annoy the upper belts. There is nothing more annoying than finding that white or blue belt who is quote unquote a hobbyist, who you cannot submit. They just have this uncanny, because they focused on it so much, they're able to create angles and wiggle and make these adjustments that make submitting them really difficult. I want you guys to focus on something from 4 to 6 weeks. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's passing. I don't care if it's playing top, playing bottom, playing a specific guard, making it that, hey, I'm gonna hit Kimuras for the entire 4 to 6 weeks. The amount of data that you get on that is crazy. Crazy. You'll get so much information just within that 6 weeks that you're going to get razor sharp because you're so focused. When you look at your training partners, watch how many of them actually have game plans. There's a good percentage of people who go to training and go to class who have zero game plans whatsoever. Zero. Sometimes I ask during my classes, and some people look at me like, what? A game plan? What? That's weird to me. I came from an instructor, Jeff, who was adamant about us finding a game plan early and then implementing. And he would give us, you're going to do X guard sweeps, butterfly sweeps, or whatever it might be. You need to rep this X amount of times, which I don't necessarily agree with now, but it was a focused thing. And then when I reached a certain point where I met an opponent that had a certain response that I couldn't figure out, I'll go to him and he'd be like, all right, I want you to do this now. And I kept building on it. But it was that focus early on of, this is what you're going to be working on, that I sometimes see is lacking today. And I'm not talking about pros. That's a whole nother level. But I'm talking about like the quote unquote hobbyists. Oftentimes we don't have game plans and we don't have things that we're focusing on. And we're really sporadic. And it might be in large part because we get technique bombed every time we log into Instagram or whatever your social media of choice is. You see all these different techniques and you get pulled, and I want to do this and I want to do that. And then you spend a couple of days working on something, and then you see another technique, you get pulled into that direction. So you have to get that focus, laser focus. During your rounds, If you got 3 rounds a class, make them productive. Don't sit out. And I understand sometimes our cardio is shit. Sometimes we're nursing an injury, whatever the reason is. Sometimes we look at training and mentally it feels too tough, too hard, too difficult. So we sit out around and catch our breath. You only have 3 days a week to train. And each day you have roughly, this on average, 3 rolls. If you're in my morning class, we only have an hour, so we have a little bit of warm-up technique, and we get 3 rolls in, usually. Those rolls will vary from anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes, depending on how I feel. That's a story for another day. You have to be focused for those rounds, and you have to roll. Even if the roll is you're dead tired and you're playing off your back and all you're doing is defending, that's data you're collecting. Don't sit out your rounds. Learn to have those really hard cardio killing rounds where you start to test, how is my defense when I'm tired and I can't push off, when I can't push someone away, when I could barely withhold someone's weight? Are my frames working the right way? Am I creating the right distance, the right angles? You learn that from those terrible rounds where all you're doing is getting killed because your cardio is shit. Don't shy away from those. Don't sit out. Even in those days where I was just like, I'm exhausted, I didn't sit out. It was not something I did. And again, rare moments of injuries and whatnot, I just decided that I was going to play the round in a defensive manner. And if I got submitted, I got submitted. It wasn't a big deal to me. But I wanted to collect as much data, and I knew that I couldn't do that if I was sitting out a round. So don't sit out these rounds if you can help it. Train with partners. Pick your partners really carefully. There's going to be some people that you're going to completely destroy. That should be a good percentage of your training partners, because those are great people to try shit on. Those are great people to implement new games or flesh out areas of the technique where you're not so great or your timing's off. You could do that with those people. And then every once in a while, roll with people that are at your level. Don't roll with a bunch of people that are just beyond you. And I understand it's harder if you're a brand new white belt. But even in those cases where the people are way above you, pick your training partners when carefully, as in, like if you roll with me and I'm way further ahead of you, I let you play. Pick those partners that allow you to work things up. If you pick a partner or your training or your instructor gives you a partner that he just murks you, you're not learning anything. You have to get these partners that at least let you work and let you play a little bit, let you figure things out. Maybe they even give you a word of encouragement or a quick soundbite of, hey, you should put your hand here. Whatever it may be. But you have to work. You have to be able to work in order to learn some stuff. If all I'm doing is steamrolling you, you're just a training dummy, and it's not good for you. So if you can pick your partners that at least you're learning stuff from, do that, even if they're above you. Stop measuring your successes and submissions. That is not the goal for you. When you're that person who's coming in 2 to 3 times a week, you're going to have to measure it in the amount of escapes you do, how many times you're funneling your opponent away from their offense. And I know this is a little more tricky, more advanced thing to do. Recognizing positions and areas of danger before they hit. That's a huge one. Not panicking. Those are the things you should be kind of like resting as, oh, these are my areas of success. These are my examples that I'm getting better. Remember when you were training and you were gasping for air and you were frantic, energetic, but like in a nervous state. When you look back and how nervous or energetic you were, and then you look at it now and you feel, you could tell you're a little bit more confident, a little more calm. That's a win. So start paying attention to how many times you're not being submitted, how maybe you're retaining guard, how you're escaping a little bit faster, how your cardio is getting better. Those are going to be great things to start gauging at. Don't gauge the amount of submissions you're getting. Even now, I don't, as a almost 45-year-old, I'm not hanging my hat on a submission as a plus. I get really happy when I can hit something I'm working on a higher belt. Those are the things that get me ecstatic about. Not necessarily the submissions. Submissions are good, don't get me wrong, but they're not the meal. It's extra. It's something else that I get happy about, but it's not the main course. If you can, I suggest reflecting on your training. Sit for a few minutes afterwards. What struck out to you? What things do you feel like, oh, I really missed the mark here? Write down stuff. Get a journal. The practitioner's journal is one of the best ones that I've ever seen. Fantastic product. You can buy it on Amazon or you can buy it directly from them. One of the best things you could do at some point is journaling. Not everyone does it, and I get it in and out of the habit depending on how lazy I am. But just reflections. If you're driving home and you're thinking about some of the things that may have happened, if you're paying attention to, I keep getting stuck in these positions. Those are things you should ask questions about. So on that reflection is also asking questions, really good questions. Not, hey, I want to submit such and such. It doesn't help me as an instructor trying to help you. Now, he keeps knee cutting, and he knee cuts like this. And then now I can give you some tidbits specific to the position that can help you. But you have to have that reflection of understanding what's occurring and what questions you can ask based on that. I would say get away from the negative thoughts. Self-talk is going to be a big one because you're going on your own race. You're not training as much as some of the other people might be training. If you're older, it's going to be a factor as well. Try to get away from the negative talk. When you're done training, don't dwell on your emotions because some days are going to be really bad and some days are going to look really ugly. Don't dwell, oh, I got smashed today. I suck. My jiu-jitsu sucks. My guard sucks. My this sucks. Don't dwell on anything. Reverse the position and think of it as, these are things I got to work on. This is some stuff I have to spend time on. And it's going to get better over time. But the negative talk really gets people down because then it's a slippery slope to, why am I even doing this? And then once you get to that point, maybe I should quit. And the entire episode gets bad. You really need to enjoy just coming to class and doing what we do. When you're coming in 3 days a week, just commit, have fun. Every round doesn't have to be a goal-oriented. It helps if it is. But more often than not, have fun with what you're doing. Play a guard that you like playing. Search for the submissions you like. Pass the guard in ways that interest you. If you're enjoying what you're doing, you're going to get so much more out of it. You're going to start asking better questions. You're going to have better responses to things. You're going to have more fun. You're not going to be down on yourself so much. So 3 days a week is a tough ask sometimes, but it's not the end all be all. And honestly, it was the average that I was doing. So I still stand behind it. I think that 3 days a week is enough if you're focused, if you have a game plan, if you're working on certain things. I started jiu-jitsu at 30. I got my black belt at 40. So about 10 years. There was a small gap in there somewhere, but it's possible. It's doable. But again, this isn't a race. You're running your own, separate of everyone else. So don't try to measure your success based on everyone else. Just really have fun with it. If you have any questions, please let me know. dfm.2099 on Instagram and Threads. We also have a free school community where I keep all my recorded workshops, Q&A. I post articles sometimes or blog pieces. Anyways, until next time, thank you so much.